So my name is Tamara, and I am the Canadian ambassador to the Republic of Korea, and thrilled to be starting a podcast.
This is so exciting. Everyone, welcome to my podcast. This is probably the coolest guest I will ever have.
I don't know, gray hair, I don't know.
No, you're definitely the coolest. I wanted to start, I wanted to ask, if I may, how you ended up here in Korea.
Oh my goodness, I ask myself that question pretty much every day, and I think that I would have probably been voted least likely to come to Korea as head of mission when I started my career. So I've been a diplomat for almost 32 years, and my career has really been focused on multilateral work. So I've had 2 postings to the UN, one in New York, one in Geneva, posting to our mission to the EU in Brussels, and then posting in France. So a lot of my career in Europe and sort of in and around the UN. And this assignment, and so the key thing is no experience in the Indo-Pacific region. And then in 2022, my predecessor here had to end his posting early, and they were looking for someone with a lot of diplomatic experience and a woman to come and take this assignment and to be able to pick up where my predecessor had left off, which was really this sort of upswing in the relationship. So that's how I ended up here. I think I had the right sort of combination of characteristics. I hope to be a good fit here and really to help build on this momentum, new dynamic in the Canada-Korea relationship.
Yeah.
So it's been totally exciting to have an assignment like this, a new departure, and really stimulating. It's a great time to be here.
Yeah. And huge apologies, because I know you must get this question all the time. But what do you do on a daily basis?
A question I asked myself.
I knew you would know the question before I said it.
So it's very true. That is the question I think diplomats
Yes.
are asked all the time, is how, what makes up our day-to-day interactions.
Yep.
First thing is no day resembles the previous one or the next one. Very different schedule, it's a lot of talking, a lot of different meetings. Today, the Korean National Diplomatic Academy organized a meeting for all ambassadors with the Minister of Unification. So that was breakfast. Then I met with a colleague from Canada who's the head of our trade tribunal, who's visiting. So hearing what he was seeing in terms of trends in Canada-Korea trade. I have a lot of internal meetings with the team here, because a huge part of the job is to be a mother to the team here. So we have 80 people at the embassy in Seoul. About 21, 22 have come from Canada on assignment, and the rest, so the largest group, are locally engaged, Korean or Canadian Korean. So it's really to offer guidance and support for teams that cover trade issues, political issues, consular issues. We issue passports here, visa and immigration advice. We have the Export Development Corporation is based here. We have some provincial representatives. We have a defense attaché. So it's a very varied agenda. The main, so as I say, a good part of it is managing the team here, but overall our objective is to move the Canada-Korea relationship forward. And we're very fortunate. We've got great guidance in terms of an Indo-Pacific strategy that was adopted in Canada at the end of 2022. and Korea is at the center of that as a really particularly dynamic relationship in the region. And it's really being the official voice of things happening in Canada for Koreans to understand a little bit more about trends, concerns, what's top of mind in Canada. The world really is seen in a different way in different places. And so there's a good coming together of Korean and Canadian perspectives right now. But it is helpful to be able to explain why we have certain legislation and our different approaches to key issues of the day. The world is a complicated place in 2024. We're really grateful for friends like the Republic of Korea, and we compare notes constantly on topical issues. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does, it does.
So as you can see, I'm good at talking, and that is my job, is to meet people, to build a network, to be the official representative. If someone wants to know what Canada is doing on a particular issue, they know they can come to us.
Okay, yeah. Is there anything that you are particularly, I would say, particularly passionate about more than, like a specific topic more than another thing, more than something else?
Well, I made reference to my multilateral background. So a lot of my time in the multilateral environment, the UN environment, has been given over to human rights. And I'm not a human rights expert. There's people who've written PhD doctoral theses on human rights issues. I am not an expert from that perspective, but I do really feel there is a profound relevance to human rights norms, to all that we do. And I think that's been one of the really exciting parts of this assignment, is how particularly relevant it is to the Canada-Korea relationship. And the conversation we have about human rights and how we promote them around the world is very relevant, because we really share a similar perspective. But also how those norms can possibly help in the relationship with North Korea, and focusing on accountability for human rights in North Korea, promoting human rights of North Koreans, and how that can help to build a better future for North Koreans. And that's been an element that has really had particular momentum in the past few years here, and I'm very proud of the fact, I can't take credit for it, but I'm very proud. In fact, this embassy has a really high profile in Seoul and Korea for our activism on North Korean human rights. We have really deep relationships with the civil society community here in Canada. And so that has been something that I wasn't necessarily expecting. And I think even though they're deeply, sometimes traumatic stories that come with a discussion on human rights, there is still great hope given the nature of the conversation with the Republic of Korea. So that's been a really stimulating part of this assignment.
That was actually going to be my follow-up question. I was going to ask, did you expect that coming into this role?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, and I guess it's been part of our relationship with Korea is how it's developed over the 60 years that we've been diplomatically engaged. We've known each other going much further back than that, but we have formal diplomatic relations now for 61 years. And there's often been a real emphasis on trade. This is our only bilateral trade agreement in the region, and it will be celebrating its 10th year next year. So there's a really vibrant trade relationship. We're two countries who really believe in trade rules and norms. So we're both active in the WTO. So there's a great understanding there. So that's always been part of the relationship. Similarly, on the security side, there's always been close consultations. We've always been very proactive in our support for a free, denuclearized Korean peninsula. So that's always been a part of the discussion. But maybe that broader geopolitical, diplomatic values conversation has been less developed. And it's been an exciting part of what's happening now in the relationship. And it's in part response to the complexities we're facing in the international arena. But it also reflects, voluntaristic approaches by both governments. We adopted Indo-Pacific strategies within a month of each other, and there's quite a few parallels in the approaches. Yes, it was a little bit unexpected, but it's what we were looking for.
Okay.
So that's always very gratifying as well. It's what we were hoping for in this relationship. And diplomacy is a lot of slow progress. I had a friend who put it really nicely. He said there's very few aha moments in diplomacy. It's a lot of painstaking, detailed negotiations, arguing about where you put commas in different texts. But it's nice to see that work sort of paying off. And in this current context, it's really satisfying to see how our bilateral relationship has developed.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, really, it's like every single day, every conversation you have is different. It just varies.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's overwhelming. I mean, this is an intense environment. There's a lot happening in Korea. There's a lot happening in the neighborhood. It's a vibrant economy, a vibrant democracy, a really vibrant culture. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, but every day it's so exciting to come into work. You never know what's going to happen to you in a good way. And almost all the surprises are pleasant ones. So.
Oh yeah, the Korean surprise.
Yes, exactly. Well, and in diplomacy, success is really no surprises. We like to know what's going to happen to us.
All right.
That's a lot of how we design our work. It's how we support our ministers and our leaders. And that's why we have these crazy programs. When there's a summit, things are planned down to the minute. And when they leave the aircraft, and when they walk across the tarmac, and when the doors are open, and when they shake hands. And it can seem sort of strange to non-practitioners. But that really is about creating a predictable environment so that we're able to achieve the agreements we're looking for. It seems like sort of setting the bar not very high, but it is incredibly successful when you look back over the course of the day and you say, that was surprise free.
Oh yeah, must be. That must be the most surprising day of all.
Yes, exactly. But rewarding.
Yes. So coming into Korea specifically with this line of work, was there any culture shocks that you had that you didn't expect, really?
Well, in some ways, no. I knew it was going to be incredibly different. I had never set foot in Korea until we landed here in August 2022. And so at my advanced age, that is totally rejuvenating. It was like tabula rasa, clean out everything in the attic. Clean slate. And so, because a lot of my colleagues here, ambassador colleagues around town, many of them have had assignments here before. And they speak the language. But that means they also have to change their glasses, change their lenses, because if they were here 10 years ago, 20 years ago, my impression is the country has changed a huge amount. Even for people who were here 3-4 years ago, things are in some ways unrecognizable and the environment has changed. So I say to people, I'm a clean slate. I'm here to learn. And so I came with no a priori sort of assumptions, which is really quite
it's press record. It'll just automatically stop
every 20 minutes.
Yes, good podcast. I'm talking too much. I'm really quiet.
It's perfect for a podcast.
Yes, so just to, it's very stimulating to have this entirely new environment. It's my first assignment in a place where I don't speak the language. And I spent a lot of my life in a Francophone environment. I speak fluent French, and I love to speak French, and I love to sort of blend in. I did an exchange with the French Foreign Ministry, and I love that feeling of sort of going under deep cover and really getting to know a foreign policy in a different country from the inside. And that's a really rare opportunity, rare experience. That is not going to happen to me here. No one is ever going to mistake me for somebody who's local. And I'm never going to be on the inside. But then that's also sort of refreshing. I can bring my own perspective. Maybe I feel people are a little bit more forgiving of mistakes I might make as well. I'm not familiar with customs and traditions. But hopefully, if I do make mistakes, I do so in a kind and gentle way that doesn't cause offense. But it's a different perspective, and I hope it helps. I like to think that it brings a little bit of our sense of wonder and enthusiasm that we have right now for this relationship. And I'm channeling what I'm hearing from my foreign minister, from my prime minister. They really see great potential in this relationship. And so I'm channeling that. And it's a little bit sort of wide-eyed enthusiasm, but everything is a learning experience. It's been amazing. So.
I mean, I chat with my coworkers once in a while, and they always talk about how much they adore Canada, and it's one of their dream places to visit. They'll always mention it, and I'm always like, go in the summer, don't go in the winter.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and that's always been part of Canadian diplomacy. We're a fortunate country from that perspective, you know, from our diversity, from our history, from our welcome to immigrants for several decades now. We benefit from a positive perception. But a challenge is also to show that we're not just nice and friendly and cuddly, but that we're relevant, that we're modern, that we're, you know, cutting edge, and that we can be essential partners. And that's where it's been quite satisfying here, is to see that change in perspective. We have to make that last. It has to be sustainable, but I certainly get that feeling from my interlocutors. As they do their environmental scan, as they look out their front door every morning, they see that Canada is a potential partner, ally in areas that maybe they hadn't thought of us before. Clean energy, green transition, AI, tech, life sciences, agriculture and agri-food. So that's sort of nice to get us a little bit beyond the, I'd like to go visit. Sure, come for a visit, you're welcome anytime. But why don't you come and do business, study, stay a while while you're at it. So there's some interesting partnerships there. There's also been a huge change. Canada was obviously a destination for many immigrants from Korea, in the 70s and 80s. And now we're seeing a little bit more of a back and forth. Canadians of Korean heritage, maybe the children of immigrants or grandchildren of immigrants are wanting to return here, learn more about the country, where their parents are from, maybe build relations with family who are still here. And then there's vast interest from Canadians who have no previous connection to Korea. That's the part I think is really exciting. Because that shows again the relevance. It's you don't have to be Korean to get how important this country is, and I think that's a really important thing for us in Canada as well. So you're an ambassador for this relationship too.
Oh my goodness, that makes me nervous. There's so much pressure. No, it's really nice to hear that. And also I do feel like a lot of my coworkers, their children are about like the elementary school age.
Yes.
And they've told me like, is Canada a good place to study? And I'm like, it's such a good place. It's one of the best places to study in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And I always tell them, I'm like, you should check out Vancouver or Toronto, because I already know there's a very good Korean population in those cities itself. And they're always like, oh no, I'll consider it, because they want their children to be exposed to something more. They want their children to learn English. That's a very big, important stuff for them. And because they want they're always telling me, when my children grow up, I want them to have opportunities with Korea, but also beyond Korea.
Yes.
And they just feel like English really opens up that door.
Yes.
And so they're always telling me, like, do you think it's a good idea? Is it worth it if I send my child to Canada specifically?
That's such an exciting new area for Canada-Korea cooperation. It was a top priority for the Prime Minister and the President when they met last year, was to increase the program that we have, the work-study visa program, so that students from Korea going to Canada can also work, which makes a stay in Canada all the more sustainable and enjoyable if they have a little income, and increases their ability to integrate and get to know Canadian society outside of the classroom. And the options for education in Canada are huge. So we see increasing numbers of young Koreans going to complete high school in Canada, and not just learn English, you can also learn French. So there's a lot of different options. Maybe there's been a long tradition here of looking to the United States as a place to travel and study. Maybe people are discovering that we have a very high caliber of education at all levels for a much lower price. So I think there is an increase of interest, and that's certainly a priority here at the embassy, is to make sure there's information out there about those options. And as you say, creating opportunities, and it's not creating this one-way street where we're wanting Koreans to come to Canada, end of story. We're wanting Koreans to come to Canada, create ties with Canada, come back here, start a business, work back and forth between Canada and Korea and other countries. So it's about that global perspective, and we see that in Korean foreign policy. There's increased interest in looking beyond the neighborhood, being part of a global environment, and for families, children to have the opportunity to go somewhere else, and be a place like Canada, I think offers a lot of different alternatives and options. So, and then it's really exciting to see young Canadians coming here. And as I say, don't necessarily have any background in Korean culture, may not when they arrive here at first speak Korean. I think it's great for Korea. I think it's great for Canada. So I have to say it's one of those pleasant surprises. We have lots of people coming to visit from different, in the public service, some from transport, people from different departments across the federal public service, and there's so many people who, I studied in Korea, I did my master's, and then they know all about the relationship, and they can bring that to the work that they do. So there's it's exciting what it can do.
No, I have a really funny story, because I went to the police department recently, and I just had to pick up a document. Why were you there? That's a little suspicious. I had to pick up a document, and actually one of the police officers there just got so excited. I was just asking me all of these questions, like
about Canada.
Are you in Korea? Like, where are you from? And like just all of these questions. And then as I was leaving, I figured out why he was so excited, and he was like, "Oh, you're the first Canadian I've ever met in my whole life." And I was like, "That is so cool."
Yes.
And then I felt like, "Oh my goodness, I was really just like a representative for my country."
Yes.
And then he said,
He must have thought, there was that great movie in 80s, Creature from Another Planet. It must have seemed like that.
And then
the doors opened. He's probably still thinking about you.
No, it was just so sweet. He was such a nice guy. And then he was just like, "No, I've just heard rumors that Canadians are very nice." And he was like, "But now I know it's true."
No.
And I was like, why did that make my heart melt?
Yes. Yeah.
Why was
That's
that so
amazing.
sweet?
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
That just made me so happy, but it really made me think the importance of just like building ties between
Yes.
countries, building relationships,
Yes.
speaking to people,
Yeah.
and just making those connections.
Absolutely. That's what our work is all about.
Yeah.
One person at a time.
No, it must be so fulfilling. Like, I imagine if I were you, I would just go home every day and be like, I just did a good day's work.
Well, it's discouraging too, a little bit, when you look at the state of the world, and there's many thousands of us diplomats working hard, and every war that breaks out is some kind of failure for diplomacy. And I find now also, I don't understand how we get there in a world which is so much more connected than it was. We don't seem to understand each other any more than we used to. Maybe we understood each other better when we didn't speak to each other through social media, through telephones. So there are many challenges, but for sure here, this feels like a space of happiness, and here we are in a complex neighborhood with a rather challenging challenging neighborhood, but it is still a very satisfying place to work. So again, I feel pretty fortunate to have been able to spend some time here.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I want to ask just some fun personal questions.
Sure.
Since you're a foreigner, a Canadian living in Korea.
Yes.
May I ask, what's your favorite Korean food?
Oh, yes. Well, so something I discovered here that I never had before was abalone.
I don't think
shellfish. Have you not had
No, I'm not a seafood person.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yes, and this is intense seafood. This is, it's not the wriggling octopus, but it's, they're sort of like giant meatier oysters.
Okay.
And I love oysters, and so it was an easy jump to abalone. And they tend to be in most sort of multiple course menus, and they arrange it on the shell, and it can be cooked or raw.
Yeah.
It's and then they're sort of interesting. The background, there's a long tradition of women diving for the abalone off the south coast, close to Busan.
Jeju, maybe?
So yes, and I'm sure there's a K-drama about that. So it's something that's also close to traditions, and as we call that in French, le terroir, even though it's on seafood. So that's something that I really like. I mean, I've yet to eat anything I don't like. It's
the
immensely
food here.
varied. It's exciting cuisine. I have to say my introduction to K-drama came through Itaewon Class. So we're kind of focused in our family on soft tofu stew, the jjigae, and I love that. After watching it in every episode, they're working on the recipe.
So good. Oh my gosh. No, Korean food, it looks good, it smells good, it tastes good. Everything about it, my favorite part of my day, because I work in a public school, is getting the school lunch.
Oh, yes.
And the lunch ladies will prepare such an amazing lunch every single day.
Oh, that's amazing.
My favorite part. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah. And they'll make it healthy, but it'll taste so good.
Yes.
I just love it. I love Korean food.
Yeah, I like the markets too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Food markets.
The fresh food.
Yes.
And it's really, really nice. Do you have a favorite Korean song or Korean artist?
Oh, hands down, Dynamite from BTS. So
BTS.
And that too, I knew that song before I came here, and I just love that tune. So there's one from I've as well. That's Who I Am, I think it is. You hear it a lot. I love that tune.
Probably in the every
so and yeah, I caught the Psy wave as well. So a highlight here was being able to meet Psy. That was very, very
You're only
cool.
mentioning this to me now.
So
That is
this
amazing.
little girl from Ottawa. Wow, you've had I don't know how many billion views of your videos.
Oh,
so
yeah.
pretty cool.
Oh yeah. No, he really, especially, I think that was the first Korean song I ever heard was Gangnam Style.
For a lot of us.
Yeah.
That was the big introduction.
Yeah.
And yeah, he just caught a wave.
Yeah.
Hit some kind of global
Jackpot.
nerve that we all needed
Yeah.
to hear from. And he's a really interesting artist, and all that he embodies, and his work ethic and his songs. And I mean, again, I'm not able to get into the minutiae, the lyrics and so on, but his story is interesting. So
No, that's really, really cool. I'm just putting it out there. If you ever meet BTS, I would love to be in the room.
goodness. Oh yeah, what a dream. Well, I did have a diplomatic colleague here. The real expert on K-pop is the New Zealand ambassador.
Oh,
here.
really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
So she really likes Suga. So we went to see the movie. The
Stop.
IMAX movie, yeah, that was really, really
I
fun.
love that so much.
Yeah, it was really, really fun.
Yeah,
So-
me and my friends here, we love K-pop, and so whenever there's a movie or a concert, if
Yes.
we have the time, we will go
Yes.
and see it. And
Yes.
it's never ever a waste. Like, we enjoy it every single time.
Yes, yeah, no, that's a very lively scene.
Yeah.
So, and again, that's one of the things I really liked about, the K-dramas generally. They tend to feature interesting Korean bands.
Yeah.
And I really love the soundtrack of Itaewon Class.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's kind of an indie K-pop sound. Some of those songs still sort of stop me in my tracks.
Yeah, yeah. No, my students, because I mainly have elementary students, they love the girl groups these days, and especially IVE, New Jeans.
Yes.
And they're just like, no, they're so cool, and they can sing and dance, and if they can do it, then I can do it too.
Anybody can. Exactly.
I love that.
No,
I
that's
just love
good.
that.
If it's empowering, that's amazing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, no, that's been a fun part of just getting to know Korean culture.
I think for many people that's the introduction to Korean
Yes.
culture. It's the K-drama or some music, and I mean I would say it's the same for probably a lot of cultures, but really for Korea, I think they really hit that Korean wave, especially with the music, I would say.
Yeah. Well, and I'm really excited because so somebody told me, little known fact, that there is a Canadian who co-wrote Butter.
Oh,
Yes.
I did not know
Yes,
that. Okay,
songwriter. Yeah.
interesting.
So we found that out. So Creative Industries was part of that trade mission, the big trade mission that came to Korea from Canada in April. And so yes, there's little known connections between Canada and Korea. The other aspect that's quite cool is the movie space, cinematography. There's a couple of Canadians of Korean heritage who have done wonderful things on film. Anthony Shim with Rice Boy Sleeps, love that film. Celine Song with Past Lives. There's Canadian content in that story. She sets the movie in New York, but it's her parents immigrated to Canada. She grew up in Canada. So I quite like that. That's sort of it's the next generation of K-drama, I think. It's Korean perspectives from outside of Korea, but a really insightful examination of what it is to be Korean elsewhere in the world.
Yeah.
And Rice Boy Sleeps in particular is a very, Past Lives, incredibly affecting stories. Nobody comes out of those without a tear. And they're very deeply moving.
Yeah. I think my biggest surprise when I was learning about K-pop actually was how many Korean Canadians there were
Yes.
in K-pop. I
Yes.
had no idea.
Yes.
And they're like very successful and very popular groups.
Yes.
And one of the first things I will hear about that group is, oh, they have a Canadian member.
Oh.
Yeah. And maybe it's because I'm Canadian, so people feel the need to mention that to
inform
me.
you. Well,
Yeah.
please let me know. I'd love that backstory.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a few we get to meet here at the MC because they come in to renew their passports.
I'm so jealous. Don't even mention that. So I don't want names.
Pretty soon there'll be sort of people parked outside waiting for them to turn up. Bad news, passports now have 10 years on them, so you gotta wait a long time.
Pretty long. That is so interesting. But anyways, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
meeting with me, and this was just really fun.
My pleasure.
And I would love to do it again.
Yeah,
sometime
let's
if
connect
you're
again
ever-
and see where we're at New
Oh,
Year.
yeah.
See if my hair's any whiter.
But this was really, really fun. So thank you so much. I really
Excellent.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It was great fun
thank
for
you.
me too.